How could you do this to Emma? Jessica from accounting practically spat the words at me, her face red with righteous anger. She's fighting for her life while you're sneaking around with some woman at the Marriott. I stood in the middle of our office's open floor plan, surrounded by judgmental faces and whispered accusations. My colleagues, people I'd worked with for 5 years, looked at me with a mixture of disgust and disappointment. If you just let me explain. I started, but Tom from sales cut me off. We have pictures, Mike. Every Friday night for the past 2 months, you're not even trying to hide it. My name is Michael Chen, and at 35, I was watching my professional reputation crumble because of assumptions and half-truths. But I couldn't tell them the real reason I'd been meeting Sarah Matthews at that hotel. Not yet. I'm reporting this to HR, Jessica announced, her voice carrying across the office. Emma deserves to know what kind of man she married. I thought about Emma, my wife of 8 years, fighting stage 3 breast cancer in our bedroom at home. She knew exactly where I was every Friday night. In fact, she was the one who had hired Sarah Matthews, PI, to help us uncover what was really happening at Jensen Financial Group. The irony of being accused of infidelity while actually gathering evidence of corporate fraud wasn't lost on me. But for now, I had to play my part. Let them think I was the villain. Everything would come to light soon enough. Do what you need to do, I said quietly, turning back to my desk. Let them report me to HR. That was part of the plan anyway. As I sat down, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. We've got everything. Meeting with the FBI tomorrow at 9. Hold on just a little longer. I closed my eyes, remembering how this all started 3 months ago. Emma had been the one to notice the discrepancies first. Even through her chemotherapy fog, her accountant's mind had picked up on patterns in the quarterly reports that didn't add up. Mike, she'd said one evening, her voice weak but her eyes sharp as ever. Something's wrong with these numbers. The trading volumes don't match the reported profits. Someone's cooking the books. I dismissed it initially, too focused on her treatment and recovery to think about work irregularities. But Emma was persistent. She'd spent her career as a forensic accountant before the cancer forced her to step back. She knew fraud when she saw it. The more we looked, the more obvious it became. Jensen Financial wasn't just fudging a few numbers. They were running a massive Ponzi scheme, using new investor money to pay off older investors while pocketing millions. That's when Emma suggested hiring Sarah Matthews. We need proof, she'd said. Real evidence. And you need protection when this all comes out. So began my Friday night meetings with Sarah at the Marriott. We go over documents I carefully gathered, build our case piece by piece. The hotel was chosen specifically because we knew certain colleagues liked to grab drinks at the bar there. We wanted to be seen, but not too obviously, just enough to start rumors. A tap on my shoulder jolted me back to the present. It was Mark, my immediate supervisor, looking grave. HR wants to see you, he said, not quite meeting my highs. Now. I nodded, gathering my things. As I walked to the elevator, I could feel everyone watching, probably assuming I was about to be fired in disgrace. They weren't entirely wrong about the fired part, but disgrace? That wasn't in the cards. Patricia from HR was waiting in her office, looking uncomfortable. Michael, we've received some concerning reports about your personal conduct. I sat down, maintaining my calm exterior. I understand. These allegations, if true, reflect poorly on the company's values. Jensen Financial Group has a reputation to maintain. I almost laughed at that. Jensen Financial's reputation was about to take a much bigger hit than a supposedly unfaithful employee. We're going to have to place you on administrative leave pending an investigation. Patricia continued. Please turn in your badge and... Actually, I interrupted, pulling out my phone. I need to take this call. It's my wife. Patricia's face softened slightly. Everyone knew about Emma's cancer. She nodded, and I stepped into the hallway. Everything okay? Emma's voice was tired but alert. They're putting me on leave, I said quietly. Jessica and the others reported me for the hotel meetings. Emma managed a weak laugh. Perfect timing. Sarah just confirmed the FBI meeting. Did they ask for your badge yet? About to. Don't worry, I made copies of everything last week. My brilliant husband, she whispered. Go let them fire you with dignity. I'll see you at home. I returned to Patricia's office, where she awkwardly finished the suspension process. I handed over my badge, cleared out my desk, and walked out of Jensen Financial Group for what I knew would be the last time as an employee. The next morning, I met Sarah at a different hotel, this time for our scheduled meeting with FBI agents Morrison and Chen, no relation. Your colleagues did you a favor, Sarah said as we waited. Being suspended means they can't accuse you of actively stealing documents anymore. Everything you gathered was why you were a legitimate employee. I nodded, thinking about the extensive evidence we compiled. Emma had been right. The fraud went deep. Senior management had been running this scheme for years, using increasingly complex methods to hide their tracks. The FBI agents arrived precisely on time. Agent Morrison, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, got straight to the point. Mr. Chen, we've reviewed the evidence you and Ms. Matthews have gathered. Combined with Mrs. Chen's financial analysis, it paints a compelling picture of long-term securities fraud. We're particularly interested in these transaction records, Agent Chen added, spreading out copies of documents I secretly gathered. Can you walk us through how you obtained these? For the next 2 hours, I detailed everything I discovered over the past months, the patterns Emma had first noticed, the discrepancies in trading records, the mysterious offshore accounts, the way investor funds were being misappropriated. What made you decide to gather evidence instead of reporting it immediately? Agent Morrison asked. My wife, I said simply. Emma knew we needed irrefutable proof. She spent her career investigating financial fraud. She knew how easily these things can be covered up without solid documentation. The agents exchanged glances. Mrs. Chen's analysis was instrumental in helping us understand the scope of this fraud, Agent Morrison admitted. Her expertise is evident in the way the evidence was compiled. That's my Emma, I said proudly. Even fighting cancer, her mind is sharp as ever. As we wrapped up the meeting, Agent Chen handed me his card. We'll need you to be available for further questions. Things are going to move quickly once we move on Jensen Financial. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. The weight of carrying this secret, of letting my colleagues think the worst of me, was finally lifting. Emma was asleep when I got home, her face peaceful for once. The latest round of chemo had been brutal, but her doctors were optimistic. I sat beside her bed, taking her hand gently. Her eyes fluttered open. How did it go? Perfectly. The FBI is moving forward. You were right about everything. She smiled weakly. Of course I was. That's why you married me, for my brilliant mind. Among other things, I said, kissing her forehead. Did Jessica really lead the charge to HR? She asked, amusement flickering in her eyes. Oh yes, she was very concerned about your honor. Emma laughed softly. I can't wait to see her face when this all comes out. I squeezed her hand gently. Rest now. The hard part is over. But as I watched her drift back to sleep, I knew that wasn't entirely true. The hard part, the arrests, the media circus, the inevitable questions from colleagues, was yet to come. But for now, we had done our part. The truth would take care of the rest. My phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. FBI moving in tomorrow morning. Be ready for the storm. I looked at Emma, peaceful in her sleep, and thought about how she'd recognized the fraud even through her cancer fog. How she'd insisted we do something about it. How she orchestrated this entire plan while fighting for her life. Tomorrow would bring chaos, but we were ready. Let them think what they wanted about my Friday night hotel meetings. The truth would be far more interesting than their assumptions. The FBI raid on Jensen Financial Group started precisely at 9:07 a.m. the next morning. I watched it unfold on the local news, sitting beside Emma's bed as agents led senior executives out in handcuffs. The cameras caught everything, the shocked faces, the boxes of evidence, the crowds of employees being escorted from the building. There's Jessica, Emma pointed out, a slight smirk playing on her lips. The camera had panned to show my former colleagues huddled outside, watching their workplace become a crime scene. Jessica was front and center, her face a mask of confusion. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. First Mark, then Jessica, then what seemed like everyone from the office. I ignored them all. Not yet, Emma advised, her voice tired but amused. Let them stew for a bit. The news anchor's voice filled the room. In what authorities are calling one of the largest financial fraud cases in recent history, FBI agents have raided Jensen Financial Group following allegations of a massive Ponzi scheme. Sources say the fraud may involve billions of dollars in investor funds. I thought about all those Friday nights at the Marriott, carefully building our case with Sarah. The whispers and judgmental looks seemed a small price to pay now. The next call was from Agent Morrison. "Turn on Channel 7 at noon," she said without preamble. "We're holding a press conference. You might want to record it." Emma insisted on moving to the living room for the press conference. I helped her settle onto the couch, adjusting her pillows and blankets until she was comfortable. The chemo had taken its toll, but her eyes were bright with anticipation. At exactly noon, Agent Morrison stood at a podium outside Jensen Financial's offices. "This morning's operation was the culmination of a months-long investigation," she began. "Thanks to the diligent work of a whistleblower within the company, working in conjunction with his wife, a former forensic accountant, we have uncovered evidence of systematic fraud." My phone exploded with notifications. Apparently, my former colleagues were putting the pieces together. "Michael, please call me back. We need to talk." "Jessica, oh my God, was this what the hotel meetings were about?" "Tom, I think we made a huge mistake." "Mark?" Emma chuckled weakly at the messages popping up on my screen. "Should we tell them about Sarah's FBI credentials, or let them keep thinking you were having an affair?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I could see Jessica standing on our porch, shifting nervously from foot to foot. "Well," Emma said, raising an eyebrow, "this should be interesting." I opened the door but blocked the entrance. Jessica looked like she hadn't slept, her usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. "Michael, she started, then stopped, her face flushing. "I don't know what to say." "That's a first," I commented dryly. "We were so wrong," she blurted out. "The hotel meetings, the woman, you were gathering evidence. Her name is Sarah Matthews," I said. "She's an FBI consultant, and yes, every Friday night meeting you so diligently reported to HR was about documenting the fraud at Jensen." "But why didn't you tell us? Why let us think?" "Come in, Jessica," Emma's voice called from the living room. "I'll explain everything." Jessica's face went pale when she saw Emma. My wife was wrapped in blankets, obviously fresh from chemotherapy, but her expression was sharp and amused. "It was my idea," Emma said as Jessica perched awkwardly on the edge of our armchair. "We needed people to notice the meetings, but not understand them. Your assumptions about Michael's character provided the perfect cover." I don't understand," Jessica stammered. "The more people focused on Michael's supposed affair, the less likely anyone was to question what he was really doing," Emma explained. Every disapproving look, every whispered accusation just made the cover more convincing. Jessica looked like she might cry. "We reported you to HR. We tried to get you fired." "Actually," I interjected, "getting suspended was part of the plan. It protected me legally. Everything I gathered was while I was an active employee. The suspension came at exactly the right time." "The whole office thinks you're a cheating monster," Jessica whispered. Emma laughed, then winced slightly at the effort. "And that's exactly what we wanted them to think. It's amazing how people's moral outrage can blind them to what's really happening." My phone buzzed again. "Agent Morrison, you might want to turn the news back on," she said when I answered. "They're starting to release the numbers." We all watched in silence as the scope of Jensen Financial's fraud was revealed. Over $3 billion in misappropriated funds. Thousands of defrauded investors. A complex web of offshore accounts and fake transactions. "How did you first notice?" Jessica asked, her voice small. "I did," Emma said. "Even through the chemo fog, numbers still speak to me. The patterns were there if you knew where to look." Michael did the hard part, gathering the actual evidence. While we were all condemning him, Jessica said, shaking her head, "God, we were so stupid." "Don't be too hard on yourself," I said. "You were trying to stand up for Emma. Your intentions were good, even if your assumptions weren't." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Tom and Mark, both looking as uncomfortable as Jessica had. "I should go," Jessica said, standing quickly. "You probably have a lot of people to talk to." "Actually," Emma said, "why don't you stay? I think it's time everyone heard the whole story." Over the next few hours, our living room filled with former colleagues, each arriving with apologies and questions. Emma held court from her cocoon of blankets, explaining how we'd uncovered the fraud and orchestrated the investigation. "The woman you saw at the Marriott," she told them, clearly enjoying their reactions, was not only an FBI consultant but also a former Marine. Michael was probably safer with her than he is with me. But the pictures, Tom protested. You were checking into rooms together. The hotel's conference rooms were perfect for reviewing documents, I explained. We needed somewhere private but public enough to be seen. Your photos actually helped establish the timeline of our investigation. As the afternoon wore on, Emma's energy began to fade. I started politely ushering people out, but not before Emma had one last thing to say. Next time, she told them, her voice tired but firm, maybe don't jump to conclusions. And remember, some of us can fight cancer and corporate fraud at the same time. After everyone left, I helped Emma back to bed. Satisfied? I asked, tucking her in. Immensely, she smiled. Though I think Jessica might need therapy after this. Small price to pay for taking down a $3 billion fraud, I said, kissing her forehead. We make a good team, she murmured, already drifting off to sleep. Over the next few weeks, the story exploded. National news picked up on the human interest angle. The cancer patient who spotted the fraud, the husband who gathered evidence while being ostracized by colleagues, the FBI agent who posed as the other woman. Sarah even came by to visit, causing our neighbors to do dramatic double takes. You should have seen their faces in the interrogation room, she told us, when they realized who I really was. Priceless. Jensen Financial's executives faced multiple federal charges. The FBI recovered most of the stolen funds, and class action lawsuits were already being filed on behalf of investors. My former colleagues, chastened by their rush to judgment, became Emma's biggest supporters. They organized meal trains during her chemo, took turns driving her to appointments, and constantly asked for updates on her recovery. It's a bit much, Emma admitted one evening as we sorted through get-well cards. But I suppose it's better than them thinking you're having an affair. 6 months later, Emma's doctors declared her cancer in remission. The same week, the first Jensen Financial executive pleaded guilty, confirming everything we'd uncovered. I received job offers from several prestigious firms, all eager to hire the whistleblower who helped expose one of the biggest financial frauds in recent history. But I had other plans. Emma and I started our own consulting firm, specializing in fraud detection and prevention. Our first client, the FBI. Life is funny, Emma said one night as we worked late in our home office. If I hadn't gotten cancer, I might never have had the time to look so closely at those reports. If our colleagues hadn't been so quick to believe the worst of me, we might never have had such a perfect cover, I added. And if people weren't so busy looking for affairs and scandal, they might have noticed the actual crime happening right in front of them. We looked at each other and laughed. The whole thing was absurd. Cancer, corporate fraud, fake affairs, and redemption all rolled into one strange package. Jessica still can't look me in the eye when we run into her. Despite my assurances that all is forgiven, Tom sent us a ridiculously expensive gift basket with a card that read, "Sorry we thought you were a cheating scumbag. Congratulations on taking down the bad guys." Sarah still meets us at the Marriott occasionally, though now it's just for drinks and catching up. Sometimes we spot people doing double takes, probably wondering if they're witnessing another scandal in the making. Let them wonder, Emma always says with a wink. People see what they want to see. And she's right. Sometimes the best way to hide the truth is to let people believe the lie they created for themselves. We learned that lesson well.